Merry Christmas, everybody. It's your old Uncle Matt here, and I want to tell you a Christmas story. So, the year was probably 1987 or 1988. And, I'd been playing guitar for a little while, had some bands with ridiculous names, the same bands you have in high school. And I was fortunate enough to go to high school right across the street from an old school music shop. Now, it was a big music shop because they also sold like band equipment and orchestra equipment and pianos. And once you would make your way through the piano section and through the band and orchestra section and the old ladies selling sheet music, you get to the guitar room, okay? And as you can imagine, in the, I guess, mid to late 80s, there were a bunch of, if you have a guitar shop right across the street from a high school, when MTV still played music, there would be this deluge of, I'm going to call us stoner kids who would work our way from high school across the street. And if you were alive back then, you might remember, it was the guys with the bandanas around their jeans and the Motley Crue T-shirt and the mullet. And every so often, you would hear one of them would know how to play the intro to Home Sweet Home on the piano, and they'd play that on the piano as they were walking through the old lady part of the music shop to get to the guitar part of the music shop. And then once you got there, the same guys would play an endless loop of Crazy Train and Sweet Child O' Mine. And if you were around back then, you remember what I'm talking about. Anyway, so like I said, it was Christmas Eve, as I recall. And it was, like I said, 1987, 1988. And your old Uncle Matt was in high school. And, important part of the story here. I had just maybe a year before, I had somehow finagled a way to buy a 100-watt Marshall head. Now, at the time, it wasn't a JCM 800 or anything. It was an older one. But it wasn't a super lead or anything like that. It was just kind of a regular Marshall head. It's still a Marshall head though, right? Okay. But there was no master volume. It didn't have, built-in overdrive or any of that stuff. And it was probably old, and it was probably the tubes were shot, and it was a 1980 87, 88 Marshall head that a guy in high school could afford. So it wasn't a lot, but it was still a Marshall. And I remember going into to the music shop, and they had a used, I had never seen it before. They had a used Dean Markley combo amp. Now, they don't make them anymore, and they probably shouldn't have made them then, but it was basically a tube preamp in a solid state power section that was rack mountable. So, and it went into this combo amp. I think it had a 12, and the Tolex was brown. You guys might remember them. And it had like a tube screamer circuit in it. That was the preamp. There was a 12AX7 tube in there or something. Maybe it had more than that, but I know it had one probably 12AX7 tube. And I went in there and I saw it, and I'm like, wow, that's really neat. Again, remember, this is 1987 or 88. It was rack mountable, but the head was still at an angle, so it actually went in at an angle into the combo box, so that it looked kind of like, all the other amps that, like Fenders, they had that angled head. This went in, it had a straight head because it was rack mountable, but they put it in at an angle. Anyway, so I was playing it, and I'm like, man, this thing sounds really neat. Remember, what it sounds like in the music shop is not always what it sounds like when you get it with the band. But it was pretty loud, I think 50 watts. It had a 12, and it would distort. And in 1987, 88, that's what Uncle Matt wanted. Hell, that's what Uncle Matt still wants. So I start finagling a way to get this. And I go and talk to the store manager, and his name's Donnie. I can't remember what his... Bill Tarpley owned the store. I would later work there, but and Donnie was still the manager when I worked there, but that was several years later. In any event, so I went to Donnie and I said, man, I really want that Dean Markley. And he said, oh yeah, well, how bad do you want it? And I'm like, well, I don't have the cash right now, but man, I really want it. Tell you what, how much will you give me for my Marshall head? And so he starts hemming and hawing, and he's like, tell you what, I'll give you $100 for your Marshall head. And I'm like, God, really? $100? I can't remember what they wanted for this Dean Markley. It was like $3.99 or $2.99 or something in back then money. And so I start finagling all these different things, and he's not budging at all, and he's not willing to make me a good deal on this used Dean Markley amp. And well, come to find out, Donnie knew something I didn't know, and that was that my mom had bought me a gift certificate to the music shop that covered the price of the amp. And he knew that if I just waited one day, I would have enough money to buy the amp. So he loved it. He was going out of his way to make me lousy deal after lousy deal after lousy deal. And I went in on the next day they were open, whatever, the day after Christmas, or I can't remember what day it was. But and he's like, boy, I was hoping that I would just keep making just the crummiest deals that you wouldn't bite on, and because I knew that your mom got you this gift certificate. And so, when you have an old school shop like that, it's a pretty cool thing. And if they know you and they know your mom, and they make you really lousy deals. The Marshall head and the Dean Markley combo amp are long gone. But I'll remember that story for a long time, and heck, it's 30 plus years later, and I still remember it. 35 years ago, it happened. But anyway, so it's a Christmas story from your old Uncle Matt. Hope that you guys have a good Christmas, and we'll see you next time. And so Merry Christmas, everybody, from your buddies at Texas Toast, especially your good old Uncle Matt.
I wanna play my guitar the only way I know how.